Good evening, everyone, our friends on the East Coast. Good afternoon to our friends on the West Coast, and good in-between time to all our friends in the in-between places, which we all find ourselves at some point, right? My name is Robert Say the Schreiber. I am the Chief Activist of the Biden Center for Social Justice, and I welcome you to our Social Justice Power Hour. We are creeping up on our 100th episode, which is quite unbelievable and very exciting, and we'll have to do something to celebrate that occasion, because who would have thunk it? And we want to thank all the extraordinary guests that we've had on the show, and we've had some extraordinary people, names you know and names you don't, but all folks who brought their time, talent, and treasure, both literally and figuratively, to the show. And but most importantly, over the past almost 100 episodes, it's been you, our beloved community, who joins us, that brings the real special quality that makes this work and makes it something that's extraordinary. So we thank you for joining us once again. It's going to be a great night with our guest, Gabe Dunn, author, podcast, Bad with Money, one of a few books that she's written. And the podcast is pretty wonderful in and of itself, and a bunch of other things. And we'll talk with her in just a few minutes. But of course, I have my spiel to do for all y'all to let you know what's going on, what's coming up, because as I say to you, since June ended, Pride is not a month. Pride is not set time. It is all day, every day. It is every month. It is every year. It is our lives. So we will celebrate, and we'll do so with a wide variety of things. And the first and foremost is tomorrow night. We have, as always, our Friday night open and out mic night for the LGBTQIA community and our allies and our friends and our family. So if you have a talent or spirit to share on the virtual stage, please let us know. We welcome all to the stage. Some people have more spirit than talent, and some people have more talent than spirit, and some people, thankfully, have both. But all are welcome. So join us tomorrow night. It's always a nice way to end the week. It's always a really wonderful, spirited, and nice way to ease into the weekend. These weeks are tough for a lot of us, whether we're working or not working, whether we're making our communities better or our communities are making us better. Whatever it may be, we are all going through something, and we should go through it together. So join us for open and out mic night tomorrow night. Coming up on the next Friday, we have our wonderful drag queen, Alicia Day, who performed for us at Virtual Pride, and we're going to have a drag night extravaganza. And we're very excited about that. We're going to have a wonderful conversation and some performances with Alicia. And if you saw her on Virtual Pride, you know that she is the cat's meow. And going in the opposite direction, we have our Lieutenant Governor, New Jersey Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver will be with us as well. And we're very, very excited about that. We're looking forward to a really robust conversation with her, not only about affairs of the state, but also about her own journey. You know, she is one of only 4 Black lieutenant governors in the entire country. That's really wonderful. So we're looking forward to talking with her about her personal journey and affairs of the state. And speaking of affairs of a state, we're also going to have on our Attorney General. Not so bad, not so shabby for our little show, right? Coming up in 100 episodes. Attorney General Gruber Graywall is going to join us, and again, an extraordinary personal journey. The first Sikh Attorney General in New Jersey, but we're also going to talk about police reform in a very, very meaningful and robust way. When we talked about him being on the show, I told him that we have a lot of questions, and we want really concrete answers about how we're going to move forward in a meaningful way, both for our state and how we also inspire the nation to do the same. So we're looking forward to that as well, my friends. On Monday, we have the incredible Amara Jones with us. And if those of you have been following this, her media company, Trans/, had their ad pulled at the last minute from the BET Awards last week, and we want to find out why. We still don't know why it was pulled, and we want to make sure not only do we want to find out why that happened in the past, but as we always do on the show, on the Power Hour, we look to the future, and we want to make sure it never happens again to anybody in any of our communities. So join us for that conversation on Monday. Coming up in the future, we have Janette Gutierrez from La Familia, the trans liberation queer movement. We're looking forward to that conversation as well. We have on our old friend Hugh Ryan is coming back. Hugh Ryan, who wrote the incredible book when Brooklyn was queer, which it was one of my favorite reads of last year, and now it's out in paperback. It's a great queer history, and he's a great queer historian. So we look forward to having another robust conversation with our friend Hugh. We have the beautiful and dynamic Dee Smith coming on, who a Grammy-winning musician, who after she identified as being transgender, lost a lot of the drive in her career, and we're going to look to how she got it back, and now she's producing for folks like Billy Porter. So we look forward to that conversation as well. And then this one I like a lot. As a former artist in a past life myself, we're having Steve Brodner on, who's a great political cartoonist and illustrator. And he also took a very direct mission in life with his art and said, I need to speak out against the things that I see wrong in our country and the things I believe that are right. And his career also took a bit of a swerve for that. And we're talking about why he made that choice and how he has come to terms with that and the wonderful work he does now that can inspire us through his art. So all those wonderful things are coming up. But what's coming up right now, and I'm very excited about, is our new friend, Gabe Dunn. So please welcome to the show, author, podcaster, Gabe Dunn, everybody. Looking forward to a great conversation. Hey, Gabe, how are you?
Hi. God, you have, first of all, a lot of notes up top. And second of all, so many guests. How are you getting all of these people? These are good guests.
Well, you know what? You just said that. It was kind of like a backhanded compliment. It's like when someone says,
yes!
You look good today.
I was just like, oh, damn. Like every guest after the next was like, I was like, what is going on? Well, I mean, sometimes, people have like bookers, but I think it's just you, right? You're just doing it.
I am Booker MG. I am the man. I'm the only person. We have a. Let me just clarify this. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
We have a community outreach coordinator. Carol Watchler is our community outreach coordinator, who is incredible. But the truth is, the Power Hour is my baby. It's been since we started. The pandemic started when we had to close down shop. It was heartbreaking to me. When I realized it wasn't safe enough keeping our beanbags 6 feet apart, and we had to close our physical doors, I knew we had to be there for our community. I had no idea we'd run for 100 episodes. I had no idea we'd have folks like you and our Attorney General and Smith and Billy Porter and all those folks who have stopped by. And the truth is, it's not me, though. Let's be crystal about this. It is not freaking me at all. It is this community. It's the folks that show up each night and watch the show, are with us and give us power. Our good friend Haley, who runs the open mic on Friday, she said something wonderful a couple weeks back. We supply the hour. Our people supply the power. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
So all these folks.
Yeah. That's the whole thing is like out of all of this stuff, the ways that like, I only know in terms of the queer community, the way that everyone's come together and like kept things going and had shows and been able to have meetings and gatherings and all that kind of stuff is like unstoppable. That's the word. That's what it feels like. It feels like just like unstoppable, which is cool.
Well, let's get right into it. So we were just talking about this a minute ago when you and I were talking privately in the green room, as it were, that you do a podcast, and your podcast had, as we do, we plan these things, and, what do they say, when man plans, or woman or people or non-binary folks plan, right?
Right.
And so you've had to take quite a swerve too. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about that. How, because that happened to us too. When we started this, it was supposed to be, a source of solace and strength for our community. And then there were so many things that happened that caused us to rethink what our messaging should be, what we should present to the community, what was important for us to gather together. And there were some rough shows in there, and you've had the same experience. So Do you want to talk about that right off this top? And first of all, tell us the podcast you do. Give us kind of a good synopsis of it, and then how you've dealt with the recent few months and an incredible way. I can't wait to get to this because I find this wonderful. So please enlighten us.
Yeah, I mean, I do a podcast called Bad with Money. That's one of the shows that I do. And it's a show about finances. And it started in 2016, kind of me being like, what is money? How do you get it? How do you fix your debt? What even are stocks? What is this? And then as I've learned more and more, like slowly, the election happened in the midst of season 1. And there's a very cursed episode where I'm like, this episode comes out tomorrow, and by then Hillary Clinton will be president. So like, see you guys, I can't even listen to that one. It's so cursed. But like, so I had this idea for the show. And then like over time, the more I learned about the system and the more I learned about the ways in which money worked and banks and the way that the government handles debt and the way that the medical system handles debt, and like the more information I got that I thought would just be like helping me personally, the more I got like radicalized. So really the show has kind of just is like a dumb white girl starts asking questions about money, and then 4 years later is like, I think we have to burn down every institution. And so the show like kind of became this very like socialist leftist radicalization for me. And then it's on season 6, and this season we were going to talk about the like wellness industrial complex and the ways in which it culturally appropriates a lot from like pagan cultures and Native American cultures and sells that to white people, and then also the ways in which it like scams people, and the whole like thing of like how to be perfect, how to buy perfect skin, how to buy perfect health, how do you like become, make your mind perfect with special drinks and vitamins and whatever. And then like, as we were gearing up to do that season and we had done some episodes, or we had banked some episodes, COVID hit. And there's like a lot of episodes, like raw audio of me on my phone in between interviews, just being like, guys, it says that this virus is really serious. Like very like strange horror movie, beginning of horror movie type audio. And then like, so then we switched gears and we started doing episodes just about like scams during COVID, or like, what does this mean for medical bills, or like, what is it going to cost to get a vaccine, that kind of stuff. And then after we had switched gears to talk more about like the pandemic and unemployment and what's going on with like being able to get relief and that kind of stuff, in the midst of those episodes, then the Black Lives Matter protests started, and the death of George Floyd happened, and everything came to this like big, way overdue social justice head for the Black Lives Matter movement. And then that shifted everything. And then we started covering, defunding the police department. And that we just did an episode that came out yesterday about reparations and how reparations would work and why they should be given to the ancestors of formerly enslaved people, and how much money they would each get. And, and I had really only heard of reparations in terms of like jokes on the Chappelle Show, or like something that white people were really upset about. And so then I talked to this guy, Professor William Darity, who is an economist who's like, I had talked to him for the Bad with Money book about income inequality and the racial wealth gap. And finally, we were able to have him on the podcast to talk about reparations, because that's one of his areas of expertise. And my audience, my fan base is like millennial, Gen Z, like young people. And so to be able to have people on who are like teaching these subjects that maybe would be like boring, but to be able to like have these people on and like accumulate this information that people are looking for right now, especially young people, through the lens of like, I'm a little bit funny about it, but I'm also like asking very obvious questions because I don't know. So like, we have an episode coming out soon that's about why can't we just cancel student loan debt? And it's just me being like, why can't we just cancel it? And then, I think it makes people have to go in circles to be like, well, we can't, da-da-da. And I'm like, but why? And so I think it's like we've shifted now, like the entire like premise of season 6, just based on to match what's been going on in the world. And we tried to be like, we're going to finish the whole season. We're going to bank every episode and then we're going to put them out and it's going to be so relaxing. And instead now we're recording and editing every week the week before so that it's up to date with the news cycle, which we were trying to avoid.
Well,
but that's actually made for a better season, I think.
Oh, 100%. But I think that you're being humble, because I think that you're not asking dumb questions per se. You're asking questions that we all would like to ask, and because you're asking them of the right people, we're all getting the answers we need.
Thanks.
I found, what the reparations episode was wonderful, because it allowed us all to really crystallize that this could be done, that not only could it be done, it should be done, and basically by the end of the episode, you're feeling like it needs to be done. And I don't want to say you're playing devil's advocate per se, but you're doing this thing where you're asking the questions and you're just playing the part of the person who needs all the information, and that's very, very admirable, because you find that when people are interviewing, they always want to sound smarter, and I
I'm never doing that.
I am guilty. I am talking to you from the guilty position of doing that. I always want people to think that I know what's going on and I can't be surprised. And I'm always the smartest person in the room. But you come with this supposed naivete about the subject.
Yeah.
But the questions are directed in a way that you can see that you know where you want to go with it. So well done.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm setting them up. Like, I'll be like, well, but why? Like, I'll ask what I think the person listening is going to ask. And then I know that the person I'm interviewing will have a good answer for it. But I want to get out ahead of the commenter who's going to be like, well, what about this? And I'm like, oh, you thought, but now you're getting an answer. But there's a lot of stuff that like doesn't have a good answer other than just like people are shitty. Like in the episode we have coming out next week, that's like, why can't we cancel student loan debt? The guy that I interview is like one of the foremost experts on student loans. He works for the Student Borrower Protection Center. He used to work for the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau. He's like the guy. And I was like, so why can't the federal government just cancel student loans? And he was like, they can, they just don't. And I'm like, but why? And he was like, well, they don't. And the amount of things that could better so many people in America's lives that are just not being done purely because like there's too much paperwork, or like people just don't want to, or they just like don't feel like they have the time, or whatever it is. Like he was talking about, I'm going to give away the whole episode, but whatever. He was talking about how well, it is, but it's fine. He was talking about how right now they have all this COVID relief stuff, but they still take money out of people's paychecks for their student loans. And they're like, oh gosh, we have to stop doing that because we're like we're like stealing money from people at a time when like student loan payments are supposed to be paused. And it was like, and he was like, okay, so how do we, like Betsy DeVos and her the Department of Education, like how do you got to just put a stop to this, right? And Seth Frotman was like, well, they don't have the addresses of like everyone's employers, so they can't get in touch with them. And I'm like, what do you mean they can't get in touch with them? And it was like, they might have moved, or they don't have the right address or whatever. And they were like, so they don't know how to get in touch with them to like put a stop on the docking of the pay. And I was like, what? Like, can't they just like put an ad on TV or something? Or can't they just like put an ad on Twitter? Or can't they just like, can't they get, what do you mean? And he was like, the federal government like doesn't know how to get in touch with people. And I was like, what? Sorry, my dog. I'm like, wait, what do you mean they just don't know how to get in touch with people? Like they just haven't updated the way that they do things, and they have no interest in it. And they like, and I was like, I could sit here and tell you like, put an ad on Twitter, put an ad on Instagram, put an ad on television, send out mailers. Like these are all the ways you could get in touch with people. And he was just like, no, you're right. But they won't do it. And so they're stealing trillions of dollars from American citizens like every day because they just like can't be asked to like figure out how to send mailers. And that's like most of the government is like that.
Well, because the postal system is evil, right? And we all know that. So
that was what I said. I was like, my conspiracy is that they do know, they just don't want to, which I don't even think is a conspiracy. But I'm like, they could, the reason they could do all these things and they play stupid is because they just, in the end, don't want to. Like this guy, William Darity, who's the professor, he was like talking about reparations and he was like, here's all the ways you could implement it. And I was like, oh, they absolutely could do it. And I was like, the thing is I think that they don't want to. And it's not like a matter of like figuring it out, quote unquote. It's like they literally don't want to because they're scared of Black people and they don't want to give Black people money. And that's it. So like they pretend to be, there's this whole thing that's coming up now a lot in my interviews about the government being incompetent. But part of me is like, is it incompetent or is it just, I mean, a majority of me is like, is it incompetence or is it just like actually purposefully evil? And I think it mostly might be purposefully evil.
Yeah.
So that's upsetting.
Yeah, it is. But so do you feel like and this is a kind of an inside baseball question, but do you feel like when you do the podcast, are you banking some of this stuff? And there's a good word, banking, for a sequel to Bad with Money? I mean, are you taking away from a second book with the subject matter that you're facing each and every week on the podcast? How do you balance that?
I want to be delicate. I had a hard enough time getting the first Bad with Money published the way I wanted because it was I think they were not, when I turned in a manuscript, the first manuscript, I think they were not like super expecting like the socialist manifesto they received, because they, I come from journalism. I was a reporter for many years, but like I got sort of known from YouTube. So I come from YouTube. And so when you sell a book as a YouTuber, I think people have this idea that it's going to be like an Urban Outfitters table book, or it's going to be like something sort of light, or, so I think what they were looking for when they bought the book from me was more of a adulting is hard. Like, here's how you make a spreadsheet or something, or like, here's, like a very sort of white girl, like, oh, I stopped getting Starbucks and now my life is better or whatever. And I was never planning on writing that. And so what I turned in was a very like researched, like queer social justice-y leaning book. And I think that took us a moment for them to, it was hard. It was like, it was hard enough to get it written the way I wanted to now that I don't know. I would have to see, but I'm happier. I like doing the podcast because it's immediate. I can have the guests I want. It comes out right away. Books take forever. And also like, I was just surprised at what an uphill battle it kind of was to be able to make the book as queer or inclusive as I wanted it to be. I think sometimes certain things that you not that I live in a bubble or anything, but certain things that you think are so obvious, people think are very radical or very strange. This is like a cute story, but I interviewed some people for the book that are, I interviewed all kinds of people, and one of the people I interviewed for a specific section was a non-binary person who uses they, them. And I had a very adorable copy editor who was like an older woman, maybe like in her 60s or something. And so she has to go through the list and like make her notes. And she, on the phone with me, she tells me the notes and we talk about it. And she's just the copy editor. And I was like, well, and she was like, oh, so this is all they, them. And I was like, oh, no, yeah, like that's the person's pronoun. And she was like, okay. And then I got her paperwork back that like just said like all her notes that she sent to like me and the publisher and stuff. And on the bottom of it, she made a little note with an asterisk that was like, in this book, people, the singular, no, for this book, the singular they is used for people who are queer. Like she almost got it. Like she was like, oh, all the queer people interviewed in this book use they, them. I see. Like it's clear it's someone's mom or grandma who is like very sweet and very well-meaning. But like her side gig is she like freelance copy edits. And so she just had to make a little note that was like, I didn't change these because it turns out queer people use they, them. And I was like, I love you. And like, you're doing your best. You're doing amazing, sweaty. But like also like close, but no cigar. And I was just surprised because in my mind, I'm like, I didn't realize that like someone would have to be like, what, like, someone would have to point that out, I guess. Like it just was, I don't know. Maybe I live in a bubble. I haven't talked to a straight person in years, so I don't know.
I think that what it is there are two things at play here. One is you were basically a Trojan horse. You came in on the YouTube wave, and everyone expected what you said was this fluffy, superficial thing, and really it has tremendous depth. It does.
Thanks.
But the other thing is you're talking about an aspect of the queer community that is not something that takes a lot of focus in the financial ideas and interests. When we first started the center, we had a great transgender friend of ours who came in, called themselves the trans capitalist, and came in and did financial work with folks and tutored people and helped people, and it was wonderful. And what was really interesting to us was that a lot of people hadn't considered it. And there are so many, not only are there financial considerations that we all have and we all share, but there are things that are unique to the queer community that need to be thought about.
Right.
Like adoption, healthcare, IVF. There's a whole bunch of things. Like queer folks. How do they do parental leave? Right. I mean, there are all these things that you have to trust. Right. So it's not you're in a bubble, but you're letting us all in that bubble, which is really important.
Yeah. I think it normalizes some stuff that people don't like, that people just wouldn't think about. Like, I know one of my favorite things that we did on the show was we had like someone come on the Bad with Money podcast to talk about polyamory and how do you do that? Like, what's the money aspect of that? Or like kink and BDSM, what's the money aspect of that? Or just certain things where it's like, these are other people. I don't know. I also like one of my favorite episodes I did. This wasn't necessarily queer, but it was called like, what if you're fucked? And it was just multiple people, like a friend of my father's who had lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, and a friend of a mother of a friend of mine who was identity thefted and had to deal with all of that stuff. So it's like kind of like, I think a lot of financial advice is like geared at like straight white cis 20 somethings or straight white cis millennials who are like, have a certain path in life that they want to follow. And they want a house, they want one partner, they want, and I think like that's a lot of people, but that's not most people. And I get criticism on the show that's like, well, this isn't like, for me. And I'm like, yeah, there's literally hundreds of financial shows or books for everyone else. And like, I like to think of my book or my show as being for the rest of the people that doesn't apply to. Like, not just queer, but like anybody, like if you're not someone who's like, how do I buy a house and I'm, married and I'm straight and I have one kid and whatever your whole thing is, later you're like calling into Dave Ramsey being like, should I buy a boat or whatever you're doing? Like, that's great. Like, there's so much for you. There's every other book on the shelf is for you. And then my show and my book is for everyone else. And like I I was like joking on our New Year's episode where I was like, what did I say? I was like, happy 2020, everyone's gay or something like that. And then a commenter, like someone left a review that was like, I like this show, but I don't like when Gabby says everyone's gay because I'm not gay. And I was like, well, then listen to another show. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, then don't listen to this one specific show that is maybe the only show geared toward this one specific audience.
Well, it's like it's when we do our advocacies and we go out to do diversity training and that kind of thing, and our community outreach coordinator Carol Watchler and I, who I mentioned before, we go out as a great dynamic duo. She is a spry 70-something-year-old, and she is incredible, dynamic, and I have to keep up with her at every breath. And when we talk to people about being cisgender, and the majority of folks we're talking to are cisgender, and there always, without a doubt, is one person who says, "Well, why do we have to be labeled? We're just, And of course, the after the ellipse of that is we're just normal, right? And gender folks or anybody else who is labeled the other, and that's what we have to nullify, and that's what you're doing in your podcast and in your book. And speaking of, let's this is the book Bad with Money: The Imperfect Art of Getting Our Finances Together by our guest Gabe Dunn. It is our Bookshop Power Hour book list. And what's great about Bookshop is that they give a percentage back to independent bookstores and to the authors themselves. So please go on there, and as we're talking, I want to buy a copy because this is a wonderful way to support our guest tonight, but also a wonderful way to learn about how we can work best with our finances. I love this. This is a quote, and forgive me. I always find it interesting to quote somebody to themselves, but this struck me. Quote: "This narrative is an extension of the prosperity gospel, which posits that you are truly a good, smart, and worthy person, you will magically prosper. Even people who know this isn't true have largely internalized the message." I think that's really interesting because I've often thought that but never put it into words like that. So how did that come to you, and why did you think it was something that you wanted to speak out about?
It started coming up. Prosperity gospel is something that started coming up more and more in financial writing during Trump. So I was reading a lot about the prosperity gospel as like a concept more and more in like 2017 when I was writing the book, like because of Trump, because the idea was that because he has a lot of money, he must know something we don't. He must be smart. He must be good. There must be something better about him that he gets to be rich, which is this like false thing that happens where, and it's used mostly in reference to churches or like mega churches. So it was this idea that like, people are mega church pastors have bajillions of dollars and private jets and huge homes, but that's because God and Jesus want them to have that. Or like, they're so moral and so good that they are being blessed in this life by God and Jesus and whoever with more money. And so Trump, like the evangelical rights way of coming to terms with Trump as a president was to invoke the prosperity gospel, similar to what they use for megachurch pastors, which is that, well, the reason Trump is so rich is because he must know something we don't. He must be a good person. God must favor him. Jesus must favor him, etc. And so even if you don't take it that literally, a lot of us in our minds, in our hearts, we believe, well, people who are rich are better than us. Like they know something, they're smarter, because we erase parts of the narrative. Like I keep seeing this thing going around now where it's a picture of like a suburban house, like a very modest suburban house. And it says, in 1994, Jeff Bezos founded Amazon in this garage. And now he's a billionaire. And it's supposed to make you feel like, wow, I have a garage. If I was as good and smart as Jeff Bezos, maybe I could have founded Amazon. But like what you're not hearing or getting is that he was given startup money from his father. He had probably like, there was white privilege involved in him being able to even infiltrate Silicon Valley or the tech world in that way. So like, but it's this thing that we keep doing where we're like, we give passes to rich people because who have excess wealth that like, there's no reason for anyone to be a billionaire. You do not need $1 billion. But we go, well, they earned it, or they're a good person, or God wanted them to have it. And that makes, so then the reverse of that is ourselves. We are not good. We are not smart. God does not favor us. Jesus does not want us to have money. And that like is just part of our culture and like gets in your brain, even if you're not religious. And it's false. Just like patently false, not true at all. Trump comes from family money as well. Most of it is generational. Most of it comes off the backs of slaves and families who own slaves. Like, but we just don't want to believe that. We want to believe individualism, like in individualism, and that like there's an exceptionalism to certain people, which is largely not true.
And I mean, it's important. It's important discussions and conversations to have, and I think that that's what makes you above and beyond just financial advisement. There's this radicalization in it that's so important, and I think that again it goes back to the idea. I think of you as a Trojan horse, where people open up the book or listen to the podcast, and then they are radicalized when they think they're just getting financial advice. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do to people. So well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you also, we've talked about the book a bit. Do you mind if we talk a little bit about your personal journey? Because it's really interesting.
Yeah, no,
I think
sure.
that our community would really appreciate, because you also deal with being bipolar, and you've talked about this openly. So I was hoping that you might share how that affects you personally, how that affects you professionally, and also how it affects you financially. Because I think that's something else that you discussed that I think also is one of those things that people don't consider, is how our mental health affects our financial health as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite chapter in the book. And I think I've heard from people, it's a lot of their favorite chapter in the book, which is just a history of all the sort of financial decisions and things that happened that led to be getting diagnosed with bipolar 2, but starting at age like 18 and onward. Because I think like a lot of people don't take into account mental health, you're right, like impact on money or on their lives, in the sense that, because I one of the big bad money things I did was I took all my money out of my bank account when I was 24, and I flew to Paris with no money. And people are like, well, that's, and I remember I wrote about this for a magazine, and one of the people editing the piece, was like, I was manic. This was me realizing this was part of like the beginning of this psychotic episode that was like, led to my diagnosis. And I like explained all the stuff. And then I just like thought it was so perfect. I'll never forget it. One of the editors wrote, circled me taking out all my money and flying to Paris on a whim, and wrote, was there a belief or an event that made you do this? And I just wrote back, this is not her real name, but I just was like, yes, Louise, mental illness. Like the subject of the bipolar disorder. I don't know if you read the piece, but I think people think that there's going to be some linear like thought, like if you're depressed, like just be happy. If you have anxiety, like just calm down. And like, that's not how it works, Barbara. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you. So I couldn't really talk about like a lot of the bad money decisions I made without giving people the context of mental illness. And apparently that's a thing that like money books and money writers and financial podcasters like don't do. So the chapter got a lot of attention, which I was really pleased about. And I got to interview a bunch of people about like, the different ways mental illness like shaped their money stuff, or being depressed and buying things for yourself because you're depressed, or being like, manic and thinking that you need to buy 100 books on Japan. So, cause you're going to definitely move to Japan next week or whatever, that I haven't done in my real life. Yes, I have. And so, that was like my favorite chapter. And it was also very freeing because I had not previously written about bipolar disorder. Like I just didn't talk about it because I felt that if I said that was, I resisted therapists telling me that I had bipolar disorder for years. I resisted it and I would be like, no. Or psychiatrists would be like, I want to put you on medicine for this. And I'd be like, no, thank you. And then, because I didn't want it in my chart. And then I also didn't want to talk about it publicly because I felt that, especially as someone who's like feminist and leftist and queer, people would go, oh, she's feminist and leftist and queer because she's nuts. And I did not want, that was like terrifying to me, was that people that were critics or people that didn't like my work would then be able to go, oh, she's only like into socialism stuff because she's like certifiable. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? She's only queer. Yeah. She's only leftist because they're all mentally ill because they're all crazy. And I didn't want that.
You give people that out to not treat you with the respect that you deserve and that warrants the advisement you're giving and the platform that you have. And I think that when people like you, and there are not many people like you, but when folks do something similar to what you did is a better way to put it, I think. It's incredibly brave, first and foremost. And we thank you for it because mental health is not a stigma. And it's an important thing for me, when people come in the center and I talk to them, at some point I will, and I almost said the word reveal. And again, that's bad language because when you reveal something, it's something that is hidden and it shouldn't be. But I will tell them that I suffer from anxiety. And I think that it's important for us to acknowledge these things when people succeed. It's not despite these things, it's because of these things. And of course, they have tremendous difficulties attached, but there's also, you've talked about that you wouldn't be where you were if you didn't have this happening to you as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a toss-up because there's productivity in it for sure, but also, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to, like, I have this dual thing where people romanticize and like, oh my God, it only took you X amount of time to do something because you were like in a manic. Like I had 3 books come out in 2019 and like as a joke, my ex-girlfriend was like, I was like, wow, I have 3 books coming out in 2019. That's pretty crazy. And my ex was like, God bless a manic episode. And I was like, okay. But I don't think so, like, in a way, great, that was very productive, but also then like I spent all of April being like, I'm going to kill myself. So like I don't know. I think people have a really sick, like fascination or love for productivity, like where they're just like, as long as you're creating and making stuff, like that's the best possible outcome or thing you could do. Like, I was seeing this, I've been thinking about this a lot because I was seeing this, there was this video going around on Twitter of this like black boy doing ballet and he's just like outside of his house and a bunch of white people were like, oh my God, if he had access to Juilliard, like he could, he could really be something or whatever. And like a bunch of people rightfully pushed back and were like, one, why does he need to like why does he need to be using this as like something to please other people or to like, be like, now he's on stage and like his art is for white people to consume. And also like, why can't we just be like, this is beautiful? Why do we have to be like, well, how is he monetizing it? And I think that's like a really disturbing way of thinking that's maybe become more under fire during quarantine when people are like, well, under quarantine, like, Shakespeare wrote King Lear. And it's like, okay, but if you just like lay in your bed all day and think about how sad the world is, like, that's fine. Like, I think there's this weird, like, capitalistic love of productivity. So when someone is like, I have bipolar disorder and they're like, oh my God, but you wrote a script in 3 months. It's like, but you also like spent an entire month every single day trying to talk yourself out of driving your car off a cliff. And they're like, yeah, but who cares? And I'm like, but that's the reaction that it gets mostly, is like, oh, I'm so jealous, which is warped.
Right. I mean, I think what people realize is it's a part of who we are, and it's not necessarily to be celebrated. It's not to be denigrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part and parcel of who we are. But you have to recognize the whole of it, and not just the pieces that are attractive or make a good story,
mm-hmm.
or that you can digest.
Right. Yeah, we did an episode of the Just Between Us podcast during that time for me, and I talked about it on the show, and we went back and forth on publishing or not publishing. We ended up publishing it, but it was like my partner who I do the podcast with was like I was like, I'm going to kill myself. And she was sort of talking to me and being like, well, you know, this isn't true, and your brain is tricking you and all this kind of stuff. And I was like crying, and so, like, we wanted to put the episode out there. One, because this is how productivity warped I am, as I was like having a day like that, and I still was like, but we're recording today, it's on the schedule, so I have to go in and record because we have a schedule that we have to put, like that, like I still had an agenda for the day. And then I went in and we did it, and she was like, what's wrong with you? And I just was like, well, this is what's going on with me today, or whatever. And I think it helped, because I think a lot of times you see the positive sides of bipolar disorder, or you see like someone being like making that joke of like, oh my God, you have so much like stuff coming out because of a manic episode you had a year ago or something. And I was like, no, let's show this other side where it's like, are you really jealous? Do you really want that? Because here's what happens after that ends. And I think like I was worried people were gonna think the episode was, I don't know, for some reason I was like, I'm a role model, like I shouldn't let these kids like see this or something, because I always think of my audience as kids, even though they're also adults. But then it ended up being like nobody was mad, and people enjoyed the episode, or like felt that it was like a good, like just like a non-romanticizing of mental illness that I think happens a lot, is that it gets really romanticized.
And a destigmatization, it's a way for you to take away that stigma and say, hey, this is me in the negative, the pushback, you see, yeah, I'm productive, that's wonderful, but there's also this moment where it all falls apart. You say, when I was manic, I wanted to spend all my money because life was a breeze, and who cared about social constructs like money. When I was down, I desperately needed material things to make me feel better. And so that financial aspect of things is also, so it must be a constant thought, and I think what people don't really realize is so much of this, if not all of it, is not controllable. And basically you're just riding the wave, whichever way it's going.
Some of it is, and I've explained this a little bit, but like being medicated is helpful, but it doesn't take away, this is like a thing I've had to explain to people, like it doesn't take away what your initial reaction is. Like it just gives you a split second of time to change it. So like I describe it as like a train track, and like something happens, and my brain wants to react one way, or wants to react a certain way in terms of mental illness, and there's a lever, and I can pull the train to the other track. And without the medication, it's just going. But with the medication, you have 5 seconds to pull the lever. And so I know that my reactions are not necessarily, they don't match what's happening. And so people think that once you're medicated, that the bipolar is like cured, in the sense that your train is on a totally different track, but it's not. It's the same track. I just now have 5 seconds to pull the lever and move the train. I can still see the part where the train flies off a cliff and kamikazes and blows up and ruins every relationship and buys 500 pairs of shoes and cries for 12 years. But I have like a moment of like, no, and then I can go the right way. And that's really strange. Like, it was almost like I was doing a bunch of research on schizophrenia for a project, and I was talking to some people with schizophrenia, and there's the thing of like thinking that, oh, once you're medicated, the hallucinations stop. And these girls were telling me like, no, they don't stop. You just know they're not real. And like, I think people think that like, oh, once you're medicated, like your mental illness is gone. And it's like, it's not gone. You just all of a sudden can handle it. It's like a huge distinction.
And it's so important. So the book we're talking about is Bad with Money by our guest, Gabe Dunn, The Imperfect Art of Getting Your Financial Shit Together. Best-selling New York Times, and also now a podcast that attracts a whole mess of people. And you also mentioned that you do another podcast with, this is a beautiful thing, you do this with your best friend, right?
Yeah, we do. Allison Raskin and I do the Just Between Us podcast, which started as a YouTube channel. We've been doing the Just Between Us show in some form for almost 7 years now.
So it's wonderful. So, and I think it's great that you have these outlets that you bring together. It is another form of intersectionality. I mean, the book talks about financial considerations for the queer community, talks about financial considerations for those of us dealing with mental health issues. But there's also a vast majority of it that, and as I don't mean to correct one of our guests, but really does speak to anybody who's looking for a way to make sense of things that we either take for granted. When people talk about reparations, like you just did on the podcast this week, there's so many folks who just don't really think about it except for the superficial aspect of it, whether, that's just, even those people who say, that's a wonderful idea, but it could never happen. It's not realistic. And the way you break it down, and what's wonderful about it too, you bring back this professor, like you said at the start of the episode tonight when we were talking. You have, and this is what builds community. You think about the folks that you've talked to in the past, and when there's a moment for them to shine again, you welcome them back so they can give their advisement, their expertise, their spirit, their energy back to the community. I think that's really how we build community, right? So that's really wonderful. There's two aspects I love about this week's podcast, is that one, you're doing reparations in a real and feasible way, in a platform that people can understand and digest. And that two, you bring on this great professor, and I'm sorry, say his name again because he deserves to be.
William Darity, but he prefers to go by Sandy. But then I knew that, and then he was like, no, we have to go by William. It's very professional. But yeah, he's Professor William Darity, and he's based in Durham, North Carolina. He's like an economist, and he writes about a lot of different topics in terms of like the racial wealth gap. But he's also in my book talking about that in more general terms. And then my producer didn't even realize. She was like, oh, this guy would be really good to talk about reparations. And I was like, Sandy? I know Sandy. Like the repeat characters.
And that's to me, that's how I was brought up. That's how I built the center. That to me is everything. Is that when we have interactions with folks, that we remember them, we recall them, and then we embrace them when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, of course.
And I just want to say again, so here's the book we're talking about for the vast majority of this broadcast tonight, is Bad with Money. It's on our bookshop.org Power Hour list with all the other authors who have been on the show. And it's really a worthy read, and I look forward to our community embracing it. And I want to thank you as well, because you're bringing something new to us. As I said, almost 100 episodes in, and we've dealt with a lot of topics, and we have not talked about financial considerations. We haven't talked enough about mental health either. And by the way, if you don't mind me getting a plug in myself, our intern who has been with us in the comment section all evening, her name is Ashley, and she's from the Princeton Theological Seminary. And she came to us, and she is actually going to do a mental health seminar, a panel discussion about dealing with how we are dealing with the duality of the pandemic of corona and the epidemic of systemic racism. And this was her idea, and she is now cultivating it. And I believe in 2 weeks' time, before our queer yoga session on a Tuesday, we're going to have a great panel discussion about that. So I think mental health is something that we need to focus on more during the power hour as well. So I really appreciate you bringing that to us as well.
Of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, of course.
How best do we reach you? How best do we hear both the podcasts? And Ashley's been throwing this up in the comment section as we've been talking. But, please vocalize it for us so those of us that are not reading the comments or just listening know how to find you and support you.
Sure. Yeah, the book is called Bad with Money, and the podcast is also called Bad with Money. And they're on Spotify or iTunes. And then the other podcast is called Just Between Us. And the Bad with Money is more of like a queer finance show, or a finance show for anyone, but it's pretty queer socialist leaning. And then Just Between Us is a variety show, but Allison and I have really had a lot of really great guests of all different kinds. Like we're comedy leaning people, but we didn't want to have really other comedians on. So we've had a lot of we've had like OCD specialists and primatologists and people who work in immigration law, and like the show is silly, and then in the middle of it is like usually a pretty like research heavy interview with a serious person, and then it's sandwiched by like us being dummies. But I've been really happy with like all the different types of guests we've had that have just been like, we like talked to someone from the Yale Stress Center about like how stress affects the body, and we've talked to different people about gender identity, and like it's just like it's been great to have like these interviews that are on these wide range of topics, but also serious in some, I don't want to say serious, but like serious in some way, where it's not just like comedians goofing off, although a lot of it is comedians goofing off. But we try to bring important topics to the children, you know?
I want to thank you for what you're doing. You're bringing, the thing I keep coming back to you with is I think of you as a Trojan horse, because you say that it's silly, you say that you and your friend are just goofing around, but there's a lot of important stuff being thrown out there whilst you're doing it.
Thank you. We're trying to teach the children secretly.
Teach the children well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Your work, however silly you may think it is, I think it's important and meaningful. And Thanks. What I say to our audience and our community, I say to you, go watch it and listen to it and see it and digest it, read it, and decide for yourself. See which one of us is right.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. And also, we should thank our mutual friend, Mike Kaplan, who was on
Mike Kaplan
a couple of weeks ago and introduced us virtually. And the moment, I think that literally he emailed both of us, and within 32 seconds, you emailed me back and said, "This sounds wonderful. When do you want me?" And it was beautiful. So thank you.
Oh my God. I'm a loser who's looking at her phone all day long. But thanks.
No, welcome to the club.
I know.
So maybe I would love to have you back sometime and talk more about stuff, especially as whatever the new normal is, or hopefully there's not a new normal, but a new abnormal, how we survive and be financially and spiritually and mentally ready for it. So
thank you for having me.
All right. We'll see you again. Be good.
Bye.
So Gabe Dunn, everybody. That book is Bad with Money, The Imperfect Art of Getting Your Financial Shit Together. also a podcast of the same name, and another podcast just between us. So search her up, as my son would say, search her up, and find all the good stuff she's doing for our community. Thanks for being here tonight, and please do join us tomorrow night for Open and Out Mic Night. My wonderful co-host Haley would love you to be here, and I certainly would as well. And if you have a time or a talent or a spirit to share, then do that. Let us know in the comment section. Ashley, our intern, has told you how to do that. So we look forward to seeing you every weeknight here at 7 p.m. at the Power Hour. Thanks so much for being here. Have a great 22 hours and 55 minutes. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Take care, everybody. Be well.